Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. With the voice, Milt Thompson. Delivering the best of sports programming. Interviews with top celebrities. And the answer to the question, where are they now? And now, Milt Thompson, Playing for Keeps.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson, right here on WHMB Channel 40. We're bringing you the best of sports programming every week. And I thank you so much for all of the viewers out there that have been sending us cards and letters and emails and texts and voicemails and saying, you really love our kind of programming. Well, that's what we promised you, so we are going to deliver. And I want to thank especially Jiffy Lube and E-Spot and Blicky Dillon Crandall, those sponsors and all those that are going to come on board here and going to start supporting this particular programming, because you don't get it better. We go all the way from the elementary level players to amateur players to collegiate players to professional players to all those teams and organizations around that support this amazing enterprise here in Central Indiana, and I know that you're going to join us on board and beyond that. Well, you know what? I promised you that once a month we're going to bring you a special celebrity and talk about their history and about their future on a segment that we call Where Are They Now? Well, you're going to appreciate this week's celebrity. His name is Gary Brackett. Many of you may remember him as a devastatingly dynamic linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, so devastating that you say, how does he get all that in that package? How does he ruin and blow up those running backs? Sometimes to get you coming across in the middle, that's when his eyes said it's time to eat. And Gary Brackett, we're going to have him on this show, and we're going to talk about how he got fed, what it took on his long journey to get there to the Indianapolis Colts from his somewhat less than bodacious beginnings. But we're going to do that right after we have these short messages from Jiffy Lube and Blicky Dillon Crandall and E-Spot. We'll be right back here on Playing for Keeps.
Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube.
And welcome back to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson. And like we promised our good viewers as well as our good sponsors and Jiffy Lube and Blicky Dillon Crandall and E-Spot Spas, we are going to bring you once a month, Where Are They Now? And this week, the bodacious one, you like that, don't you, Gary?
I love it.
We got Gary Brackett. Gary, welcome to our show.
Man, thanks for having me.
Man, we've been looking forward to this interview and having you on here, looking at the longevity of your career and what happened in the period of that career. Tell us about your background, your beginnings, how you got to Rutgers, and how do you get to Rutgers to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So born and raised, came to New Jersey. I don't know if you're familiar.
I am familiar.
On the East Coast, so rough neighborhood, to say the least. So my parents, we moved out to a small town called Glassboro, New Jersey, when I was about 5 or 6 years old. So I had 3 older brothers, 1 younger sister, 2 stepsisters, but we always played. We always were active in playing sports. So I was a 3-star, sport athlete, played basketball, baseball, and football. My best sport was actually baseball, but it got.
You didn't tangle up with me in the baseball, man. You don't be careful with that now.
Hey,
oh, come
I'm
on.
telling you, man.
All right.
I finally learned how to hit the curveball, right?
Okay.
So I was dangerous, but it got boring, right, sitting on base. So football was something that I really gravitated towards and really started exploding once I got to high school. And, that kind of put me on the map to give me opportunity to play at the next level.
So when you were kind of thinking about football and being exciting, did you have any idea that there might be a future in it, or did you kind of play it just for fun, or do you play it for activity, or to get away from other issues, or did you just beat up on your brothers and sisters?
Yeah, when I've learned in football you can hit people and not get in trouble, I was like, this is the sport that I'm going to play. But then from there, you recognizing and you're looking at, other competitors and other athletes, and it was like, I know I could play at the next level. I know I could play at that college level, and I always want to go to Division I. I didn't have any scholarships, but I had the opportunity to walk on at Rutgers University. So that's what I did. I walked on my in 1999. Didn't have a scholarship. Parents paid for tuition, and then my second year after they paid for tuition, they gave me a call and they said, "Hey, we can't afford tuition anymore. We refinanced the house twice, so you're gonna have to come home." So I told my coach that, and he fortunately, I had a meeting with the head coach, and some kid had just flunked out of school. I had like a 3.4 GPA, was on special teams, a second team. He gave me a scholarship, and I kind of never looked back.
Well, Rutgers, now in the Big Ten, that time wasn't really in the Big Ten, was in a different
Big East.
Big
Yep.
East, Big East, and fairly formidable, good competition, good players. When did you learn that you could compete at that level with those players? You say you did a little special teams, you did some other things.
Yeah. So Miami was Big East, Virginia Tech, Boston College. And at the time, Miami was sending like 8 to 10 first rounders in the NFL. Just not like draft picks, first rounders. So a couple games against them, I had really solid games. And I thought to myself, like, man, if I could perform essentially against the NFL team, then I can actually, have a shot. So finished my career in college as a 2-time MVP. So it really, the hard work that I put in, the sacrifice, the consistency, it really paid off and just gave me opportunity. And I just wanted a chance. Just give me a chance, to play at the next level. And once I get my foot in the door, like I know what hard work is. I'm no stranger to it. And that's what kind of happened when I had the opportunity to come here in Indianapolis and try out for the Indianapolis Colts.
But you're going to bust it down and be bodacious when you bust it down, right? So, I having worked with professional athletes in most of my career, I know that the agents are out there recruiting those bonus babies. They want to get their cut, right? So they're going to go after those guys that are going to get drafted. But every once in a while, there's that diamond in the rough that says, draft is not going to define me. It's how am I going to get there from here? Tell us what your journey was to get here from there.
Yeah, so again, not having even agents recruit me on my journey to the NFL, so I kind of, a young agent was kind of recruiting me early on. I kind of thought I was going to get a bigger agent. I didn't, so I come back begging him, like, please take me on. So he gave me an opportunity, put me through some paces, had me work out for him, and I proved, I've run a good 40 times, so I was really staying in good shape. So from there, again, going to the Indianapolis Colts, at the time I was 4th string. And the interesting about 4th string NFL, there is no 4th string. So like I was on my way out the door.
Exactly.
Right. So I had to prove myself. So I did that by at first playing outside linebacker, which I'm a natural middle linebacker, but I just wanted to get reps. And at one particular practice, my first camp, I had an interception and I ran back for a touchdown, like the end of 2-minute drill. So everyone was like, yo, who's this kid? Like, who's this kid making plays out here? On special teams, I would always show up and flash and make a play. And they're like, who's this kid? Like, he won't be denied. And for my mentality, because I did it in college, I was like, I'm not signing any brother-in-law contracts, right? I'm not signing any, hey, take it easy on me today. I'm sore today. I'm not signing up any of those contracts.
Right.
So for me, it was just like, yo, if you're facing me, like, buckle up because it's going down. And that was just my mentality, and the coaches loved it. Like, yo, this kid isn't afraid of anybody.
So you told about that moment when you're in practice, you snatch one out of the air, and you get bodacious on them again, and you take it to the house, and everyone's kind of looking. And you're wondering, what are y'all looking at? But you know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They're looking, can you take the pressure that we're going to put on you?
Yeah, but so it's crazy because even my first year, we had some injury as linebackers, so as a rookie, I was starting in the preseason at middle linebacker and still making flashes, still making plays. And they were like, can this kid really do this? Can a rookie start? We had a first-round middle linebacker draft pick in Rob Morris, right? It was injured.
Yes.
So he came back.
BYU,
and he was healthy,
I believe,
BYU.
right?
So he came back, and I played a little bit of linebacker that year, but I played really good on special teams. But then after that season, I kind of went through a bunch of adversity. I lost my father, my mother, and my brother in about a 16-month span between my first and second year in the NFL.
Well, that's a story that's been kind of talked about a little bit. Tell us about your brother and what went down with that and how that helped shape you.
Yeah, so my brother had T-cell neuroblastoid leukemia, and it's really was aggressive for him, and it continued to come back. And for me, I became his bone marrow donor. So I tell the story that we looked a lot alike. He was 3 years older. which is great for me because when he turned 21, essentially I turned 21. Right, so
right.
you pick up what I'm putting down, right? But when I first year in the NFL, he needed a bone marrow transplant. I went in and I got tested, and I was his match. So I did it during my second season during like spring camp. It was a very important time. Coach Dungy was very understanding and let me do that, and it just told me how valuable life is and how precious those moments are that you have with people. And I went back to the hospital, gave him a bone marrow transplant, and walking back to my room, I saw other kids affected by the disease, and it just struck me like, man, what can I do to help in this area? And I started a foundation after 2007 to help critically and chronically ill children, and to date, we've helped over 200,000 Indiana residents. So very proud about the impact I was able to make.
Isn't that amazing? And also, you mentioned a mentor. You mentioned Coach Dungy.
Right.
And Coach Dungy, a real quick story with him. I was interviewing him. He was getting ready to introduce Peyton Manning at the Pathfinder Awards. And we were doing a remote radio interview out there at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and they were able to get him over there, and he's going to be my next interview. And this was right after he lost his son, and he had not disclosed that any place. And next thing you know, they got technical difficulties he can't be on. I said, Coach, I really appreciate you making the effort to do that. I know you got to go introduce Peyton Manning, but he says, Milt, just be okay. It'll be okay. I thought it was like 20 minutes, and he said, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I said, I'm so sorry, sir. He said, no, it'll be okay. It was his understanding of that circumstance. Of course, he came back on.
Yeah.
First time he disclosed publicly about his son that he was willing to talk about. So that influence that he had with you, understanding what you were going through, is critical that we have those kind of role models out there. Tell us about your relationship with Coach Dungy.
Man, I think what you kind of see is what you get, right? And how solid he is, how stoic he is, how disciplined he is, right? But also the understanding from him, from a football aspect, I've never seen someone be able to simplify the game as much. Because, people try to make football complicated. And it's blocking and tackling, it's running and catching, right? And it's not complicated. So he just really wanted to simplify it. But then as a man, I think he really respected you in a way that most coaches don't. He didn't yell at you. He didn't belittle you. He didn't cuss you. He just said, he explained to you very simply, what the expectations were.
Well, to be a man, you had to be a man also to your brother. You had to step up in the face of adversity. You had to create opportunities for yourself as well on the football field. Whether it's simple or complicated or not, you had to demonstrate that I got you.
Yeah.
So when it was time for Gary Brackett to eat, tell us about your NFL career, Gary.
Yeah, so the crazy part is I became a captain after my third season. And from that point on, man, I understood that it wasn't about me. And it wasn't about my accolades or my success. My goal was to win as a team. And I just became a real good leader. And understanding what people that was playing beside me needed to accomplish in order for us to win our games. So I spent a lot of time, outside of practice, outside of the game, with these players, getting them ready to perform. And most of it isn't physical. Like, I played with some Hall of Fame type talent. So a lot of it is mental. A lot of it is right between your ears, that people really just need affirmation, they need confirmation, and they need someone who believes in them. And I think for me, I had players who believed in me, and I just kind of wanted to echo that to everyone else. And I think that confidence is what had us become the most successful winning this team in any decade of football, right? From 2000, 2010, we have the most wins of any team in any decade in the NFL.
If you had to pick out one highlight, what was it in your NFL career?
Man, it still was my second game of my career. It was a home game against Seattle Seahawks, and they called my name running out the tunnel. And as a kid, that's the kind of dream I had.
That you have.
Right. Gary Brackett and me running out onto the field. So I still think of that like, man, if that was my last time in the stadium, like, I've accomplished my dream.
Dreams do come true, folks, and they're coming true in the way of where are they now? And we know where he is right now. He's sitting here right here with me, and that is superstar Gary Brackett. We're going to talk a little bit more about his ventures after his professional career right back here on Playing for Keeps. I am the voice, Milt Thompson.
Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube.
Welcome back to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice Milt Thompson. I want to thank Jiffy Lube and Bligadil and Crandall and East Spot Spas for their sponsorships, and looking for you out there to look in your business coffers and say, that's the kind of show we want to support. Value-based sports programming in Central Indiana, you can't find a better combination. I promise you that. We have been talking with the great Gary Brackett here about his fantastic professional career with the Colts, becoming a leader, a captain. You guys seen him perform. You know a little bit now about his backstory. Came from a tough beginnings, but also fought through adversity there to get onto walk onto a Rutgers ball club and fight for a scholarship. Some things they say are luck and coincidence or just fortuitous. No, those things aren't true. You make your luck, you make your breaks. And Gary Brackett has done more than that. He's breaking records and also breaking hearts when it was time for him to eat on the field.
No doubt.
But hearing that name running out of that tunnel, Gary Brackett, what did you think about?
It probably was the slowest run that I've ever had, right? Probably in the history of the game in terms of just soaking it all in. But the thing of it is, you dream sometimes big dreams, and sometimes the world almost convinces you that they can't happen. So that was that moment when I realized that dreams can come true. And I think that's such a powerful statement because at some point, you know, I coach people now.
You coach your son too, right?
Yeah.
So
I coach my son in football, but then coaching business owners. But as adults, at some point, we stop dreaming. And we get beat up so much through our adversity and through our obstacles and through our challenges that we don't think we deserve anything that, you know, that we wanted to do in our lives. So that moment really just encouraged me, man, to continue to dream, continue to fight for, you know, the life that I wanted to create for myself.
Well, thinking about that, a lot of people don't think about when they're playing professional sports that there is one day when it is their bodies and their minds and physicality won't be there. They're a step slow. Nobody can play till they're 44 years old, right?
Right, yeah, just ask Tom.
Right. But oftentimes you have to take a little time to prepare yourself when you're playing professional sports and say, can I do something after that?
Right.
In my case, it was, well, is law school even possible? Or can I dream about doing something? In your case was like business.
Right.
Tell us about that journey as a player, thinking about post-playing times, what you're going to do. You were a good student, so you knew that you had some foundation and background. What did you decide that you were going to do?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Well, during my final years, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to be involved in business. And I went and I got my MBA. I went to George Washington University, got an MBA. And I feel like we all have these toolboxes in our lives. And I think at some point in time, unfortunately, we always pick up the same tool. And the tool that I picked up was the hammer. But the challenge with picking up a hammer is that every situation looks like a nail. And then, you know, obviously as a lawyer, you can't go around with a hammer in your hand.
Not all the time. Exactly.
That's not going to work.
Or sometimes you end up being the nail.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for me, recalibrating my toolbox and the tools in there by going to get my MBA really set me up to then, you know, venture into the restaurant business, which is a challenging business. But we had a lot of early on success. We grew. We started franchising, which I was responsible for putting the documentations and preparing those to get us ready to franchise. So I felt very confident and very proud of what we've done from a franchise standpoint.
So you chose a lever instead of a hammer.
Exactly.
And with your lever, what'd you do?
Yeah, so it's just, you know, putting forth systems and processes. And my thing, managing a big team, was it's not an advantage if we don't take advantage of it. Meaning that if something happens at this one location, let's figure out what exactly that was, and then let's institutionalize that so that all the rest of the locations can learn, good or bad, from that situation. So a lot of that was going on, a lot of communications, and like I said, it was fun. You know, managing people. We would always say that, you know, we wanted people to leave out from our restaurants better than they came in. So it was an awesome responsibility that our job was to essentially throw a party, you know, every day. And what you do, you throw a party. You get prepared. You make sure you have enough food. You make sure it's prep. You make sure you have enough people that's going to serve. So, you know, that's one of the highest thing that you could do is serve others. And I really enjoyed it for my time. But obviously, you know, as they say, all good things come to an end. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we had to make some tough decisions. But I look at it now, and I feel like it was the right decision.
It's not all about bricks and mortar, like you suggest. You might be able to afford a location. You might be able to work some financing out to be able to create an image and some branding, and all of a sudden things are kind of moving along, and people are enjoying your product, and you're expanding your product. And as you say, a pandemic, but sometimes it's not a pandemic. Sometimes it's a business circumstance, or sometimes it's your personnel. It's managing people. They always say in the restaurant business, you don't want somebody to eat up all your profits, right? So tell us about your management model, and your financing model that got you into there, which maybe led to a pandemic that calling for an abrupt stop.
Yeah, so I think when the one good thing about having multiple restaurants is that you can start to understand PARs, and we were very numbers oriented. So we looked at numbers in terms of where exactly we wanted to be at. So when you look at your pour costs, dealing with your alcohol, your beer, and you look at your food costs, dealing with your handling of food, we know exactly where we need to be based on what we were ordering. So the business circumstances, one of the major things that occurred was third-party delivery. When third-party delivery entered into the food space, you had to pay them upwards of 35% of gross revenue for them to deliver your food. Now, restaurant margins are only 8 to 12%.
Right.
Now you're paying out 35%.
Math, do the math, right?
So then what would occur? So now people are not only ordering DoorDash, they're not coming in, they're not having beverages at the restaurant. So everyone thinks that, okay, well, you make all your money at the bar, and that's not true. So your food cost should be under 30, your pour cost should be under 25. So that's 5-point difference, so it doesn't make a difference. But what happens is the cost to produce. So cost to produce for a restaurant full of 50 people is $15 times 4 people. Cost to produce drinks is $213. You're paying someone, and they're gonna make tips. So when you look at all those factors, the margins were getting deteriorated as the labor prices start increases, commodities prices start increases. So margins that were once 20 are now 10. So the room for error is just not there anymore. And then when you factor that with some other circumstances, it just didn't make sense.
Right. You athletes out there that think that you're going to just like use your name and get by, go back, get your MBA, go back and study it. And even if you do that and you understand business, some things just don't quite work out. Gary, this has been such an awesome time here, getting a chance to get to know you a little bit better and talking to you about where are they now. We know where he is now, but in the last minute here, tell us what's your ambition and what is your next venture?
Yeah, I think for me, public speaking. Speaking, going out there, encouraging people, inspiring people, then also working with business owners. I mean, you learn so much in the trenches. The MBA school was great, but I learned, 10 times more actually being in the trenches, signing those contracts, signing those checks. So I want to help other business owners grow and scale their business effectively, select the right products so that they can experience, the life that they dream of.
What better of an example can you get out there, folks, as a prior athlete, still in his heart a great athlete, and also a great businessman and owner, actually delivering quality services to all you others who are out there that are aspiring. I want to thank Gary Brackett for being on our show today, and I want to thank you for watching us every Friday evening at 9 o'clock here on WHMB Channel 40. Continue to write in and send things to us and go advertise and patronize Jiffy Lube. Go out there, get your oils changed right away and all the other services that they provide. And you come back here next Friday evening for another version of Playing for Keeps.